Florida residents plead guilty to a conspiracy involving, I think, Ashley Biden's diary, that thing that we're not supposed to talk about, that Project Veritas may have gotten, that may detail stories about Joe Biden and daughters and all sorts of terrible things. Well, we now have confirmation out from the actual DOJ, the Department of Justice. Here's what they posted August 25th, 2022 for immediate release for all of us. They say Florida residents plead guilty to conspiracy to commit interstate transportation of stolen property. That means the diary. The pleas come out following the filing of a criminal information, which we're going to go through. And they say that they stole property belonging to the immediate family member of a then former government official. Okay, at that moment in time, right, that's Joe Biden. Now, Damian Williams, he's this new he's kind of a woke prosecutor-ish type of guy out of the Southern District of New York. We learned a lot about him in the GM case. And he came out and he said, look, I'm announcing that two individuals, somebody by the name of Amy Harris and Robert Kurlander, pled guilty to conspiracy to commit interstate transportation of stolen property involving the theft of personal belongings of an immediate family member of a then former government official who was a candidate for national political office. That's Joe Biden. Harris and Kurlander pled guilty today in front of a judge. U.S. District Attorney Damian Williams said the following. He came out and he said, Harris and Kurlander stole personal property from an immediate family member of a candidate for national office. It's Joe Biden. They sold the property to an organization, I think that's Project Veritas, for $40,000 and even returned to take more of the victim's property when asked to do so. Harris and Kurlander sought to profit from their theft of another person's property. FBI Assistant Director Driscoll, he said, as they've admitted with today's pleas, the defendants conspired to steal an individual's property, which they subsequently sold to a third party and delivered across state lines. Wow. They really went after that. Have you ever had something stolen out of your house or your car? Like, I had gym bags stolen out of my car, right? Okay. Break a window, take your bag, jerks. But man, you lose a diary and you're the president's daughter. Woo, they go across state lines. They charge everybody with crimes. As a consequence of their actions, they now face punishment in the federal justice system for their crimes. I'd like to thank the Public Corruption Unit for diving into this. And as you're going to see, we have the full information. This is the case against both Amy Harris and Robert Kurlander. These two pleading guilty to conspiracy for apparently selling Ashley Biden's diary. We've got one count here, nothing too serious. It is a fairly significant document. It's 13 pages. Let's see what we can tease out of this. It says the U.S. attorney charges the following. We're going to learn about Amy Harris and Robert and how they got this diary. They say they knew that this belonged to an individual, the victim, that Harris and Kurlander knew was the immediate family member of a former government official and a political candidate. They call it Candidate 1. That's Biden. The victim had stored the property in a private residence in Florida, at which Harris and others were temporarily residing. Okay, so turns out Ashley Biden leaves the residence. Harris and others move in, temporarily residing. And they find the diary, but they don't give us a lot of details on that. They say after Harris stole the property, she enlisted Kurlander to help facilitate the sale. Harris and Kurlander met in with Hatton, employees of an organization named Mamaroneck in New York. During the meeting, Harris described the circumstances of how she obtained the property and provided the property to the organization. After the meeting, and at the organization's request, they returned to Florida to obtain more property in order to give it back to the organization. They later met with the organization employee in Florida, gave that employee more of the property, believing that the organization would then transport them and the property from Florida to New York. Ultimately, the organization paid Harris each $20,000. Big bucks for that diary. So they give us a little bit more detail on they call it the initial theft of the victim's property. They write, in or about the spring of 2020, the victim, which is Ashley, resided with a friend at the friend's residence. When the victim moved out of the residence on June 17, 2020, remember, this is all months up leading to the election. The friend gave the victim permission to store a significant number of personal items at the residence, which the victim did. So the victim stored in the residence, among other things, a handwritten journal containing highly personal entries, tax records, a digital camera, a digital storage card containing private family photos, a cell phone, books, clothing, and luggage. Woo! On or about June 19, 2020, 2 days after Ashley Biden moved out of the residence and stored the property there, the friend invited Amy Harris, the defendant, to temporarily stay in the same room of the residence that the victim had previously used. Is this like an Airbnb situation or something? While there, Harris discovered the property that the victim was storing at the residence. At the time, Harris knew that the victim was a member of the immediate Biden family. So she comes in, she's sort of staying in the same room and maybe opens up a closet and opens up a box. And they see something in there. On or about, and I'm getting a note over here from Blue PN over on Rumble, says Marco Polo, shout out to our friends over at Marco Polo, published everything except the pictures are published over there. Now, on or about August 19th, Amy Harris, the defendant, contacted Robert and the defendant and asked for his assistance in selling some of the property, including the journal, digital storage card, and the private family photographs. That same day, Kurlander texted Harris and saying, yeah, we're going to make an S-ton of money from selling this stuff. So on September 6th, and Amy and Harris, they get together. They attend a political fundraiser in Florida meant to help the campaign of a candidate number 2 who was running for office against candidate number 1. I wonder who that could be. Could that be Trump? Harris and Kurlander attended the fundraiser with the intent of showing the victim's stolen property to a campaign representative, hoping the campaign would purchase it. They texted Amy Harris. They say, on Sunday, you may have a chance to make so much money. These people are just so excited. By that time, Harris had stolen additional items belonging to the victim, responded saying, OMG, coming with stuff that neither one of us have seen or spoken about. I can't wait to show you what mama has to bring to papa. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's too good. What an amazing couple. Let's read that one more time. Okay, so Amy is sending this over to Robert. By the time Amy had stolen some additional items, she responded over to Robert. She says, OMG, coming with stuff that neither one of us have seen or spoken about, and added, I can't wait to show you what mama has to bring papa. On or about September 10th, 2020, a representative of Trump's campaign conveyed to Harris that the defendant's campaign was not interested in purchasing the property. Okay, Trump's people are like, we don't want that. Get that out of here. Trump, no way. Who do you think we are? The Clintons? No, get out of here. Get out of here. We're not Hillary over here. And they advised Harris and Kurlander to provide the items to the FBI, right? That's back when they thought that the FBI was maybe going to do something. So Kurlander texted Harris and they said, the campaign can't use it. Sorry, baby, we're not going to get rich tonight. They wanted to go to the FBI. There's no way that Trump can use this. It has to be done a different way. So they're just, and so Harris, then they say, look, later on or about September 10th, Robert Kurlander texted Amy. He says, I have a call with the organization today. I'm going to find a way for you to make some money with this. On or about that same day, Employee 1 instructed Amy and the defendants to use an encrypted application to talk to the organization. Thereafter, Kurlander used an application to send photographs to another organization. After receiving the photographs, the organization offered to pay for airfare, hotel, and car service to transport property from Florida to New York City. Now, you see where this is going, right? They're trying to connect this to the organization. They're saying, oh, the organization is paying for airfare. They're paying for hotel. They're paying for the car. They're being charged with conspiracy, which means that, this organization is almost helping facilitate a conspiracy, right? And they're doing it by transferring money. This is how they're going to try to overcome any First Amendment protections. They're going to try to say, right, a defense from Project Veritas or from whatever organization would be, we're journalists here. We have the First Amendment that allows us to take documents that are provided to us that are newsworthy and publish them. And we've got all sorts of privileges. And they're going to say, well, no, you're conspirators. You're criminals. You are paying for them to facilitate the transfer of these stolen goods, and that's not protected by privilege. They continue, they say, the first interstate or transportation of the victim's stolen property is as follows. On or about September 12th, then, Harris and Kurlander, they flew to the organization on their expense from Florida to New Jersey with certain property, including the journal, digital camera, other digital storage cards containing private family photographs. Robert texted Amy, says, let's have fun and make some money. Harris liked the text message. They took a car service to a luxury hotel at the organization's expense. That evening, on or about September 12th, Amy and Robert, they met at a Manhattan hotel with employees of the organization, including employee 1 and an executive of the organization. At this meeting, Amy and Robert provided the property of Ashley Biden to the organization. Harris described how she obtained that property, disclosed that the victim had additional property stored in the residence, and explained that Harris had access to the residence. Harris's explanation to the organization during this meeting confirmed for Kurlander, Robert, that Amy had stolen the victim's property. So Robert is listening to her and says, okay, she stole it. She didn't find it, she stole it. Also, during the course of the meeting on September 12th and at a dinner the same evening, as well as during a conversation held within the week, employee 1 told Amy and Robert, the defendants, that employee 1 wanted Harris and Kurlander to get more property from Ashley over to the organization, in part as a means of authenticating the journal. How do we know it's even true? Can you bring something like that we can match this up with? And that the value of the items previously provided by Amy and Robert would increase if additional items were obtained. During the September 12th meeting, executive number 1, don't know who that is, agreed to make an initial payment of $10,000 for the property that they provided earlier in the day. 2 days later, and the day after Amy Harris and Robert Kurlander, the defendants, returned to Florida from New York and at the organization's expense, on or about September 14, 2020, Kurlander set out to plan to sell the victim's stolen property to the organization, texting Harris, I'm expecting that they're going to pay up to $100,000 each, maybe more. I made it so that $10,000 is not your only payment as it was written. And if this does turn into something good or blockbusting, then it'll get us more money. They, of course, come across as the nicest people in the world, but, their job is to pay the least, and they aren't your or my best friends. They are in a sketchy business here, and they're talking and taking what's literally a stolen diary and info, and they're trying to make a story that will ruin the victim's life and affect the election. And they write, she can easily be thinking all of her stuff is there and not even be concerned about it. We have to tread even more carefully, and this stuff needs to be gone through by us. If anything worthwhile, it needs to be turned over and must be out of that house, they say. So they're sort of detailing the conversation between the two. Right? And this is the pretext for why these people are pleading guilty. They're saying, look, you did all this stuff, right? This is the information of what the charges, the base of the charges are for. They write, after Amy Harris described the circumstances under which she got Ashley's property, and between September 13th and the 17th, employee number 1 from the organization asked Amy and Robert to return to the residence so that they could get more stuff that they haven't provided to the organization yet. Employee 1 also repeatedly informed Harris and Kurlander that he was working in consultation and at the direction of an executive at the organization, executive number 2, right? So who are they going after here? Who are these people? Executive 1 and 2 are going to be in their crosshairs. If they're people like James O'Keefe, probably in the crosshairs. On or about September 17th, Robert Kurlander, the defendant, used an encryption application to text employee number 1 that removing the property and providing it to the organization was risky, and the organization should agree to pay them more money. He said, we don't want to do more or anything else and give anything else until we have some consideration spelled out. Meaning, what kind of money, right? Consideration, what's that? We are doing everything we say we will do. It's just not fair. We are taking huge risks. This isn't fair. Around the same time, Amy and Robert, the defendants and the organization, engaged in negotiations for additional payments for the property. Then on September 17th, Amy and Robert, they took more of the victim's property, including, among other things, tax documents, clothing, luggage, all with the intent of giving those over to the organization. Then on, again, that same day, employee 1 actually flew from New York to Florida to personally pick it up. met with Amy and Robert, who had just stolen the property out of the residence. All three of them met in Florida, and Harris and Kurlander provided the items to employee number one. Following day on the 18th, Kurlander met with the employee again in Florida and gave an additional bag of stuff over to them. They say Harris and Kurlander provided these items with the understanding that they were going to be transported from Florida to New York. So employee number one is in those crosshairs. The next day, on or about the 19th of September, employee one shipped the stolen property from Florida to New York. Then we fast forward September and October 2020, and consistent with the encrypted messages, the organization paid Amy and Robert a total of $40,000. September 18th, org paid out $10,000 to a representative of Harris. On October 21, $20,000 goes over to Robert, and then another $10,000 on October 24th goes over to Harris. Both a little richer. And if they had student loans, they got another 10. In or about September 20th, in the Southern District of New York, they say that they committed the crime of conspiring to transport stolen property. It was part of a common scheme or plan. The conspiracy had overt acts in which they transported certain stolen property. And they're saying that all of this stuff should be forfeited. And if you can't, locate any of this stuff, the rest of this is just legal jargon. All submitted here. This is the information signed off on by Damian Williams. Okay, so all of this submitted. The two of them pled guilty to the charges, and the whole thing got wrapped up nice, quickly, and easily. Now, I tried to find a little bit more information about the actual defendants, the two people who were charged and pled guilty, and I was not able to find too much about them. Didn't see a whole lot about their background. If they are, politically aligned one way or the other, you would presume that maybe they're politically aligned with Trump, but maybe not, just because they found stuff that helped Trump, right? Trump might help them get money, but they may not necessarily be political activists. They may have just been somebody who came across something and they said, Trump would love this stuff. Joe was showering with his something, so they sent it over to him. Now, the big question, of course, is, all right, they pled guilty very quickly, very easily. It's almost like not even a big thing. They just show up. You did what you did, pled guilty, easy in and out. Why? Well, because they don't really care about them. They're not all that interested in Amy and Robert or what mama's bringing to papa, okay? Or whatever, they're doing over there. Good for them. They sound like they're having a lot of fun. But the New York Times is really hinting about where this is going. They say after the Florida pair pleads guilty in the theft of the daughter's diary, they're now concerned that they're asking questions about how the diary ended up in the hands of the conservative group Project Veritas near the end of the campaign. So you can see where this is going. They write, federal prosecutors presented new evidence on Thursday implicating the conservative group Project Veritas in the theft of a diary and items belonging to Ashley Biden. Says President Biden's daughter laying out in the court papers their fullest account yet of how allies of President Trump tried to use the diary to undercut Mr. Biden in the final days of the campaign. Court papers show it here. They say prosecutors directly tied Project Veritas to the theft of Mr. Biden's items in the court papers, saying that an employee for the group had directed the defendants to steal additional items to authenticate the diary. Right. So you can see exactly where this is going. They're saying that, Project Veritas and James O'Keefe and others are responsible for this criminality by sort of encouraging it, almost endorsing it. And they give us their ages a little bit. Miss Harris, age 40. Mr. Kurlander, age 58. And, they are still going to be awaiting sentencing, so we don't know what their penalties will be. But I'm going to guess they're going to be pretty low because both of them, I'm very sure, have agreed to testify against whatever the government needs. They'll be probably very useful witnesses as the inquiry against Project Veritas and, other sort of enemies of the regime continue to come under their microscope. And so we'll continue to follow that. I'm sure that James O'Keefe and his team are well prepared for this, and they're already communicating with prosecutors and the DOJ. And so we'll, of course, continue to follow that one.